So I'm going to talk today about partnerships, and this has been a big challenge for me in my lifetime. I had to learn some hard lessons, and for a lot of my clients and other people I've worked with over years, I've just seen some pretty bad outcomes when it comes to partnerships, friendships destroyed, families in turmoil, and different things like that. So we're going to talk about how to avoid some of those things and give you some options on how to structure your partnership so you can avoid a lot of these challenges. My name is Maurice Kempner. I'm an attorney, real estate broker, business consultant, and coach. Welcome to True Legacy Wealth Media. So here's a little diagram of how you can do your partnership. You can see over here, instead of having different people be in the partnership, you have each person be their own entity. So here's entity number one, right here, for example. Here's entity number two, or this could be Joe and Jill, whatever. Now, so let's just say this is Joe, this is Jill over here, and they're going to be partners, right? So Joe has his own LLC with an S election. Jill has her own LLC with an S election. It doesn't really mean, I'm just using this to illustrate, you don't really have to have an S election. There might be other reasons just to have a straight up S Corp or even a C Corp or a limited liability partnership, whatever. But each person, this is the most likely scenario because of wage issues and avoiding self employment taxes. This is why the two people might want to have their own LLC with an S election. But down here, this company right here, this is owned 50-50 to Joe and Jill. They each own it. But this company is just a company that operates everything. It doesn't own anything. It doesn't own any equipment, doesn't own the client list, nothing, right? It just runs the business, right? So now let's say the partnership comes to an end. There's nothing really here to divide up. Each of the partners here own stuff. So a lot of times what happens in these partnerships is one person will be a little more unequal than the other. So maybe Jill here, she can afford the equipment and Joe can't. So Jill here, she buys the equipment and maybe that's owned by her S corporation, right? And the S corporation gets rent from the operating entity for renting the equipment, and that's how she gets paid for it. The equipment is rented. If there's ever any breakup in the partnership, she paid for the equipment. She still gets to keep it, and they can make whatever agreements they want with each other on what might happen in that case. If there is a breakup, how would she be compensated for having to buy this equipment beyond just rent that she might get? Anyway, that's one thing. And maybe when they come into this partnership, Jill, let's say Jill has a lot of clients and she needs help, and that's why she's bringing Joe in. Well, so the client list there would be some agreement made, and the client list would be owned by Jill's LLC, or maybe it would be owned by Jill directly. And that would be an understanding. And then this business here, the operating business, is going to pay a fee to use the client list, right? Now, if there's ever any breakup, Jill owns the client list. Now, there's ways to protect your client list other than just having a non-compete clause. I'll do a separate video on that so I can show you how to protect your client list. Now, Joe over here, he has a little bit of land. He runs a little farm on that. He runs that through his S corporation. And he has this great business name that he used in other things out there. And he's got a little trademark on it, and they decide they want the business to use that name. Well, the company can pay Joe here for the trademark. They can pay royalties for the trademark. Now, these royalties, they're not subject typically to self-employment tax. Neither is the rent of the equipment. Neither is the client list fees usually. And then Joe can get some money for that. He can run his own little side consulting business over here. So you see, there's lots of reasons why each person is going to want to have their own separate entity anyway. Now, one of the issues you might run into is the IRS. They might try to say, well, they'll come and look at situations like this and they'll say, well, there's really no business purpose for this. It's just some kind of a tax thing. and they'll try to make it all one entity. But if you've got legitimate business reasons for having separate entities and then those entities are partners, I don't think you're going to get much of a challenge from the government. They're just mainly looking for things, schemes or ideas that people use, systems that people use, I should say, that don't really make business sense other than they just lower taxes. And it's just, a bunch of nonsense. That's kind of what they're looking for. And that's really not the case in this diagram I showed you. And this is just how to think about it. That's mainly what I'm showing you here. You don't have to own the business together, the business that has any assets. You just own an operating entity together. All the assets are owned by the partners individually. If there's ever a breakup, there's no doubt what goes to who. It's easy to break up and everything is done, right? Now, I'll talk some more about how LLCs work. I'll talk some more about non-compete agreements and other things that you can do to protect yourself in business. But this is what I think is usually the best way to set up partnerships to make them work well. And if things don't work out, it's easy to get divorced. So I hope that helps. And if it does help, we hope that you'll like the video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for watching.